get this device because we have so many pallets, stuff, that we got to shred up, right? It's like, there's no red tape. There's no corporate bureaucracy. It's just, you look at them, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Let's just go ahead and do it. A lot of companies were affected in COVID. We blew up. I mean, it was just insane because we're doing a lot of home deliveries. We're doing a lot of residential. Fifth Dimension, I'd like to consider it as not just a courier company or air freight company or any of those specific very segment, final mile company, but more of a custom logistics company. At the time I was 28 and I had the chance to go to my father and say, hey, look, let's get your partners out. Let's take this over. Let's do a spinoff. I'm 28 at the time, so I want to build an empire, filled with piss and vinegar, so to speak. This is Chris Bartley. I'm Chief Operations Officer with Fifth Dimension Logistics, and you are watching the Last2First Podcast.
All right, check this out. If you're in the last mile delivery industry, we have created something that's just for you. We've called it the Last2First Huddle, or the L2F Huddle. We can come into an ecosystem or community built for the last mile by the last mile. Now, you'll be able to get access to educational courses, right? Playbooks, as I call them. We build playbooks teaching you everything from A to Z in the last mile industry. Everything from how to set your right driver model, to how to navigate misclassification issues, to how to find customers, how to price that work, how to operate it, all the way through to if you want to buy a company, how do you value those businesses. We also have an AI tool called Ask Miles. Miles will answer any how-to question about the industry. I've personally trained it myself. It's pretty damn good. And then also, we're about community. So you're going to access coaches, experts. We have film studies or weekly calls. You'll be able to deep dive into workshops. Look, this is the place to be if you're in the last mile industry. L2FHuddle.com. I'll see you inside. It's time to huddle up. Let's do it. All right, Last2First Podcast. Welcome back to our next episode of Last2First, where we talk to the innovators, the movers and shakers who's pushing this industry from last to now first. I'm excited to be joined with another great guest today. We're talking to Chris Bartley, who is the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Fifth Dimension Logistics, based here in New Jersey. And so we're going to have a really engaging conversation. So let's get to it. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Excited for this conversation because you have some unique things about your business, how you operate. But first, we were talking off camera about your COO role, right? And why not CEO, right? So tell me, why do you want to be the Chief Operating Officer, not the CEO? 'Cause I know you're the CEO, but what's the reason behind it?
Yeah, behind the scenes. I mean, the CEO is like a very versatile role, especially like in the beginning, starting the company up. Could be in a truck, could be in a warehouse, you know what I mean? Could be covering somebody out, So it's like you don't want the CEO doing that, right? It makes you look a lot smaller than maybe you really are, So the Chief Operations Officer role is very versatile, One day you're analyzing IT systems and software, warehouse operations, doing sales, managing maybe, customer problems, you know what I mean? Claims, things like that. It's just such a versatile role.
Yeah.
That every day from the next, you could be doing two totally different things, So it suits me pretty well for all that, especially starting out, trying to, rebuild the whole company and bring it up. You're just constantly doing different things, different days, So CEO's got to be like high on the perch, right?
Yeah.
You just,
It reminds me when I first got into our family business years ago, and I had to go out and make deliveries, right? Because we have short drivers, and it's what happens. And my dad told me, was he was not day to day at that time, but he was I think I must have been on the phone with him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm gonna make deliveries for short drivers." He's like, "All right, make sure if you run to a customer, you tell them it's manager in the field day, because the very point you're making, right? You don't want them to think that you don't have drivers, right?
Right.
You want them to think that you're actually going out there and you're taking which everyone should be doing, right? Go out in the field and make sure it happens. But it reminds me of kind of what his philosophy was on making sure the clients understood that we were engaged,
Right.
But we weren't so small that we had to actually, I was the backup driver.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge with that.
So, Phil, let's start with Fifth Dimension Logistics. I like to get just a profile of the company, kind of what you do, where you do it at, how many drivers, kind of the customers you support and service. Just give a little sense of the company.
Yeah. So at our core, we are an air freight trucker. Cartage, Cartage company. We started out doing air freight by the airports. Air freight, I would say in this world, it's kind of changed. A lot of it is surface ground. A lot of it's, especially on domestic side, it's, it's forward air, you know what I mean? Or other road feeders that you're recovering from, and you're doing drayage, right? You're picking up locally, right? From local facilities, getting into your warehouse, checking it in, making the appointment, focusing on all the important details that are on that final delivery, which are usually pretty, step intrinsic and have a lot of requirements to it. So at our core, we're doing like air freight, and we run into like, the CLDA, a lot of couriers and stuff. And it's really like two different worlds, courier's more point to point, whereas with cartage and air freight, you're pulling from the airports, checking it in, like I said before. So that's our core. I'd like to consider us as what you call a customized logistics company, right? Because we're getting SOPs from all over the place. We do a lot of heavy marketing and advertising, so we're getting requests for all kinds of stuff. Pool distribution, bringing a bunch of POP displays and it's going to different stores, or just storage and inventory and pick and pack. Or hey, we're going to contract a driver. We're going to give you a driver. We're going to give you a truck. We're going to give you all the compliance, and you just pay by the hour, and you route the truck, right? So we call that contract logistics. So fifth dimension, I'd like to consider it as not just a courier company or air freight company or any of those specific very segment, final mile company, but more of a custom logistics company.
Got it. So you fit the solution to the customer's needs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Now, where, from a geographical standpoint, where do you operate?
Yeah, so we started out, Fifth Dimension's basically a spinoff of a much larger existing company that was founded in 1983 by my father, Atlantic Freight. And we ended up ultimately getting bought out by XPO. But they didn't want all these satellite offices. And so when we started out, we were in Los Angeles, we were in Vegas, we were in Orlando, we were in Queens, and then, of course, upstate New York. They only wanted our 200,000 square foot facility in Elizabeth, and they wanted the two contracts we had, which was FedEx and Amazon. And that was the DDU postal injection, right?
Yeah, which is... Let's check out from one of our partners what's on the radar for 2026. What's up, David? How you doing?
Good to see you, Jason. Happy New Year.
Happy 2026. What's the one thing you're kind of most excited about from a feature standpoint coming up on the roadmap for 26?
We've launched sort of a fully embedded learning management system where contractors that are onboarded can get HIPAA certified, bloodborne pathogen, hazmat, radioactive, bar 3, and that library continues to grow. We are the best option if you're a life science and pharmaceutical delivery company.
What's the one thing you hear from your customers and why they choose ICSAFE?
We've built this by listening to customers, and we help our customers run their 1099 operations just smarter, better, and faster than anyone else. We combine industry-leading speed, but also with uncompromising quality.
What you're most excited about achieving in the upcoming year?
We have a number of new exciting features coming out in 2026. I'm deep in the process of acquiring a company right now that specializes in savings and tax filing for 1099 contractors. We're not resting on our laurels. There's going to be a lot more to come in 2026. That's just one of the few things coming.
Gone away.
It's huge, yeah. It's gone away, and it's it's all been internalized. Amazon's doing their own stuff, obviously, but starting out, they wanted to start taking it over.
Yeah.
But
what year was this XPO?
This was in 2014.
2014. Okay.
So XPO came in. They didn't want all these satellite offices. At the time, I was 28, and I went from owning my own drayage company, sea container company. That went out of business because of Sandy, and me and my partner were had a lot of disputes and stuff like that. So we just realized it was a good time to shut it down on our terms, right, and get ahead of the curve before it got worse. So I came back to Atlantic, and my job basically was to interface with all these satellite offices, right? So XPO came in, and they just really had no interest in these satellite offices. So at the time I was 28. And I had the chance to go to my father and say, hey, look, let's get your partners out. Let's take this over. Let's do a spinoff. I'm 28 at the time, so I want to build an empire, fill with piss and vinegar, so to speak, wanted to do something. And I already had a lot of integration with all these stations, right? I knew all the staff, and, I think they would have been affected, we don't know what the future of those would be. If everything was kind of tucked into that deal. So we created Fifth Dimension Logistics. That was the vessel entity to kind of take it all over. Then throughout the years, I realized that, trying to be a governor, right, of a state that's like 2,500 miles away just doesn't really work out.
Because you were in LA, Vegas?
Los Angeles and Vegas.
Los Angeles, Vegas.
Yeah. Los Angeles was very small. We basically had two big customers. One was UFC. It wasn't UFC itself, but, you know, they're related to UFC with all the merchandise. You know what I mean? And then we also were doing like a lot of movie theater displays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was two big accounts, very profitable, managed with just 2 employees, you know. But, you know, just operating in California is just a lot of challenges.
Different animal.
So, you know, we figured out that it would be better to have an agent that's already based out there, living in there, integrated with the state, knows how to navigate all the laws, you know what I mean? So we started handling that work through them.
Okay.
And then we basically pulled out.
Got it.
And then Vegas actually is pretty interesting. In 2016, we ended up giving that station to the employees.
Okay.
You know, because we were flying back and forth.
Gave it to them.
Gave it to
not sold it to them, gave it to them.
Yeah, no cash down, but basically the deal is, and where we get compensated is through factoring. So they didn't have to put any cash down or anything like that, you know, but they just had to enter into a ongoing factoring agreement.
Okay.
You know, which they need because they need it for the cash flow. You know what I mean? And make payroll, stuff like that. So that ended up working out really well because that station was losing about $5,000 a week.
Okay.
A lot of headaches. Trucks were getting broken into. You know, I'd fly out there for 2 weeks, clean the place up, get a lot of stuff done, and then by the time I land, a week later, it's like I was never there in the first place.
Yeah. So I'm gonna park you for a second because there's a lot I want to jump into. One, when you talk about drayage, air freight, for someone in the audience that may not be familiar with these terms, what are the types of vehicles you're using to make these deliveries?
Yeah, we've got a pretty wide range. So we're anything from cars. I mean, we don't get a lot of that work. You know, a lot of courier companies kind of specialize in that stuff, but we can put it together. So we're really starting out at the Sprinter, then City Cube, which is like your 16-foot cube truck. You know, usually they have a lift gate. 26-foot straight truck, or you can have, you know, we have a couple 22s, you know, for tight areas. In the city, sometimes you got to drive one in an elevator, you know, go down to a basement. So, yeah, the 22s are kind of good for that. But our main workhorse is the 26.
Yeah.
With the lift gate, and then we're going all the way up to 48 or 53 tractor trailers.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a nice.
Some heavy equipment. And it's all ICs, W2s?
Yeah, mostly ICs.
Mostly ICs.
Yeah, mostly pretty much almost 100%. You know.
Got it. Okay.
We do have some company trucks that we'll rent on very, very short term. You know, we'll put like a warehouse guy out.
Okay.
You know, to go. You know, if we have like a certain project
work.
Yeah. Like for an example, we do a lot of online marketing and advertising. A solar panel company lost their contract, their coverage, and they had 670 solar panels trucking out of California. They had no warehouse. So they found us on online search, and we said, yeah, let's do it. So we inbounded all those. We did long-term storage, and then they were delivered to a solar farm locally. And there was just a lot, right? So we just, you know, we got a couple trucks and, you know, some warehouse guys and just ran a brigade. You know? So we'll do that, but yeah, it's mostly ICs. That's a really great model for us, and we've really got it to a fine-tuned balance to where it kind of works out.
And go back to the Vegas piece with the staff. I'm curious because you don't hear that model very often, right? Where it seems like, you know, I must refer to like a company purchased. You know, I know you didn't purchase it, but you did the factoring arrangement,
right?
So, and you said that's worked out well since then. So I guess what's changed? Because you mentioned that you would go out there, kind of clean it up.
Yeah.
Is it now because they have ownership of it that it's
exactly?
Yep.
So, you know, Vegas is a lot of trade show work, convention work, and it's very seasonal, right? So the spikes where it gets really, really busy, then it gets really, really slow. So they would go out and rent trucks to handle, you know, all the capacity to go into the shows. But, you know, I'd fly out there and be like, why do we still have, you know, 5 trucks out
sitting there?
You know, the last major show, CES, was like a couple weeks ago. Why this? Oh, we've been really busy. We haven't, you know, had time to be able to return it. It's like these things cost like every day, and then batteries are getting stolen off of them, tires are getting stolen off of them. You know what I mean? You know, so overtime. There's a lot of overtime when it's like really slow and the revenue's not there. You know what I mean? So we were losing like $5,000 a week. You know, and we had some problems and some headaches. So I'd go out there, fix them, bring on some good people. remove some bad people, right? And then you go back and it's just like you weren't there in the first place,
Yeah.
So I took the team out and I said, listen, you got two options. Either we're going to take old Yeller behind the shed, put a bullet in his head, and close this thing because we got to cauterize our losses here, man. It's just not working out. Or you take it over. I'll set everything up. We'll set up the payroll company. We'll set up, your bank accounts, the entity, all that stuff, right? And then you guys just come in and operate the way you do, and we'll hold your hand, on the back office level of it, right? And you guys take it over.
Almost like a franchise model, almost.
Correct. Yeah, you guys could basically carry a license to be a Fifth Dimension station, right? You guys can do work on our behalf, and if we have a contract in New York, and they need somebody, you can trade as, you know what I mean? And we'll factor your invoices, right? So you're not having to put any money down, traditionally like you would on a buyout, right? But the deal is that we're gonna factor your receivables, and you'll be getting your your funding every Tuesday or whenever you submit the invoice list, right? So it worked out great. I mean, it's one of our most profitable things with the least minimal amount of headache and management.
I'm intrigued by it because a lot of times companies they grow and kind of get over their skis, right? It's the term that people use, and in particular, you have brick and mortar, you have other facilities that you're working with, and they sometimes, like you said, like they have the choice to make, right? Either we're going to shut this whole thing down. Normally that's what happens, right? They shut it down, or they may truly sell off some of the customers to a competitor in the local market. But I haven't really heard of this model per se in our space, where you can still stay involved. You kind of provide some of that administrative support, really leveraging your expertise on the administrative side, client relationships. I'm sure you could probably help them find some new business.
Absolutely.
But then you get your hands away from some of the part that we know can get a little messy.
Right.
Managing people, managing assets,
right.
All the things that can go wrong in the space. So I guess it's unique for the industry to learn from, because maybe other people can kind of replicate it.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself doing this in other markets too, going forward?
We really like to, yeah. I mean, this is a very special formula because we know the staff very well. At the time, we actually own the real estate too, right? So we own the building, beautiful 30,000 square foot warehouse, 2 miles from the airport. I mean, literally constructed very, very recently, just kind of for this business. You had 11 doors all close together, huge ceilings. I mean, it was just the perfect building. So we bought that as a real estate investment. And so it's great. It worked out awesome because they're a tenant. They're paying rent. You know what I mean? We know the staff, we know the customers, right? All the customers are creditworthy, so we're not writing bad, we're not writing bad debt, bad invoices, right? So it's a very close hand-to-hand, kind of deal where we're comfortable, in doing that. So we would like to, really kind of look into doing that a little bit more, in certain areas, I wouldn't want to be doing it with some unknown guy in Alaska,
It's gotta be right fit.
Yeah. I mean, we file security interest, so I put a UCC lien on the business, right? But, you got to have a lot of trust.
Yeah. I mentioned managing growth. I know part of your story, you guys grew a lot and grew fast. But what was, I guess, at the peak of this time, what was this roughly revenue size of the organization?
A lot of companies were affected in COVID. COVID, we blew up. I mean, it was just insane because we're doing a lot of home deliveries, we're doing a lot of residential, so everybody's stuck at home, they're not at work. Take a lot of time to do some online shopping. People that never did online shopping now had to, because you can't go in the store, right? So grandpa's going on HomeDepot.com and buying a log splitter instead of pulling out his red Ford 150 to load it up, So we're delivering tractors, all kinds of stuff. So we just kind of blew up. So at that point we also had Queens, JFK Queens, which was a different operating entity. It was kind of standalone. It was a direct motor carrier, it was a different brand, all that stuff, but it was a tuck-in. So we were doing like 17 million. And with the same amount of corporate office people we have right now. So at the corporate office, it's just me, our CFO who's remote, and then basically three assistants. One manages receivables, one applies receipts, and then the other one compliance and other stuff and station support. So we were the same size.
Yeah.
Corporate, right? Or 17, million. It got to the point where I'm like, I might have to bring on somebody for regional, a regional director or a regional manager to just kind of
manage some of the.
When I get to the point where I'm all over the place, right? So my inbox will be like small thing here, big major thing here, huge contract that spends, 2 days to go through with attorneys and stuff. It's just all over. When I get to the point where it's like I can't cover this effectively, I'm gonna screw up, or I'm gonna go over a deadline, or
Yeah.
that's what's like, So it got to that point. I'm like, we might need to bring some more help, and I didn't like that because I like having a direct, umbilical cord and relationship with our station managers, right? At each station, it's the station managers, the dispatchers, warehouse guys, right? And then me.
Yeah.
So that allows us to be extremely fluid, extremely dynamic.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? There's no red tape. Hey, Chris, I need 11 forklifts, or we need to rent, some more trucks. We need to, get this device because we have so many pallets, stuff, that we got to shred up, right? It's like, there's no red tape. There's no corporate bureaucracy. It's just, we look at them. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Let's just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. When that's, it's critical in our world because speed matters, right?
Yeah.
And the more, chains of command you have,
right,
the slower you respond, and frankly,
compliance department, stuff like that. If we get a contract or an RFP, I mean, I'm getting it pretty much back the same night.
Drop-off brings peace of mind, convenience, and professionalism to every delivery. We're helping healthcare, retail, and industrial businesses offer a better delivery experience. You can place a delivery online from your computer or phone any time of the day, with upfront pricing and to-the-minute arrival times. Real-time tracking allows you to monitor your delivery on a live map throughout the entire process. You'll get automatic confirmations when your order is picked up and delivered. Our couriers are vetted, uniformed, and only drive in marked vehicles, guaranteeing a professional experience every time. You can rest easy knowing that we will represent your brand exactly the way you need us to. We're committed to providing exceptional customer service. That's why our delivery experts are available 24/7 to ensure your business goes uninterrupted. This is same-day delivery made simple. Talk to a same-day delivery expert on dropoff.com or call us today.
Somebody will say, hey, we got a bid, get back to us like, Wednesday next week. I'm going through it like right away, and they're probably going to get it that night or tomorrow,
Yeah.
And I do I don't do all the legal work. I'm not a lawyer, but, I go through everything with the contracts. If a lawyer has to rubber stamp it because they're a lawyer, then it goes there. But I'm negotiating all the contracts, redlining all the agreements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're able to do these things like very quickly, and it allows us to really be dynamic. And I think that's kind of what makes us a little bit unique.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Talk about from a profitability and a margin standpoint. I'm specifically interested in like the air freight side because I'm more, background's more courier, right? More, small parcel. But I've talked to some other guests on the podcast, just off the podcast, and they talk about, the average shipment price doing that type of work.
Yep.
It's maybe 2, 3, 4x what you would see in kind of courier small parcel work. So what can you share about how, like maybe the average shipment price of a delivery you do versus kind of what maybe I used to do? And then how does that impact the margins for the business?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I mean, Courier, we do a little bit, for certain accounts where we pick up from a shipper, we deliver direct to target, to destination. But mostly, like I said, it's air freight, cartage. So there's very specific tariffs and tariff structures, right, that the pricing is kind of based on. So you have an area minimum. Every zip code where you would normally go to on routing, right, has a assigned zip code based on how far it is. And that zone comes with a minimum, which, for an example, in area A could be like $23, and then cents per weight. Right?
Who's setting these rates?
It's from the industry, right? So this all actually started way back, many, many, many years ago. ACI Guide is like the Bible of air freight, right? So the airlines, would have all this air cargo, right? And they're basically the ones that came up with these tariffs. And you'd have these trucking companies where they're doing it on their own, right? Where they're doing pickup and delivery, and then it's one single solution, right? So you're just dealing with the airline door to door.
So
that's where that tariff, that tariff came from. So it's a minimum, and then cents per pound.
Okay.
And then all the extras. So, for example, in area A, it's only $23, right? And let's say it's a heavy shipment, then you're putting, maybe like 15 cents a pound on it. So whatever's higher, right? Is it the minimum or is it the 15 cents a pound?
Either or.
and you're probably looking at about, with fuel surcharge and everything like that, probably about like $80 a shipment.
Okay.
But it could be a huge crate. You know what I mean? So it's really a numbers game. It's really a volume game. You know,
Uh,
you have to load up these trucks. You can't be going out with like 2 deliveries like you maybe can as a courier where you're getting paid for point to point.
Yeah.
You gotta have like the truck like pretty much maxed out at the way those rates are.
To make it work.
Yeah.
Now educate me. I'm ignorant to it with the tariff. So it seems interesting, right? The airlines, I'm some airline, they're setting the pricing that they're going to pay to you. So to me, there's an inherent conflict with that. Like although we know the customer does, obviously, ultimately, they are the ones that pay the price, whatever you're going to charge, right? But
Right.
they're setting it. Do you have to abide by it? Can you negotiate these prices? Is that some still?
Yeah,
stands
well, I
today,
mean,
or
the
is it
trucking
just
industry
kind of
was like really regulated, right?
this is
And
back? This is back in before deregulation.
Yeah, it was, so now that it's deregulated, yeah, we don't, you could do whatever you want.
I got it.
know what I mean?
Okay.
But
Okay.
when you're trying to get a lot of business from different forwarders, that's the structure.
They still operate with this template in mind of kind of
Right.
pricing. I got it. Okay.
Right. Everybody's familiar with it. Now, if we go and try to work with like a direct shipper or something like that, like, hey, we'll do your point to point stuff, and you show us tab, like, what?
Clueless.
Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of fun. It's very niche,
You got it. Okay. All right. So 80 bucks a delivery, and obviously, like when we did some box truck work, and we would always have like the thought, okay, this truck on a given day has to generate at least, I think it's like maybe $500 a day, because you got to cover the drivers at that point, right, are gonna get more money because IC model, they're gonna typically get 65-70% of a split, at least in our world. So you want that truck doing 500 plus a day to be able to cover kind of drivers and their costs. So you're right, it becomes a volume game. And so, but it's still on demand in nature, right? Most of this the freight you're doing is it scheduled or more on demand?
A large volume of it is scheduled, right? Like,
Okay.
hey, we get pre-alerted, like, hey, these are your shipments coming in from Forward Air, like, in 2 or 3 days. So
So you have your relationships with a carrier, so you know what's coming, but it's still can be pre-scheduled on demand, maybe the way.
yeah, so in pure air freight, we're a trucker, a freight forwarder's giving us the work, right? We're gonna get pre-alerted. The forwarder is going to use a local truck. Let's say shipment's coming out of LA, right? They're going to use a local trucking company like me that's in LA. Then they're going to either book it on an airline, United Airline, right, or UPS or FedEx or something like that, or what we call a road feeder. A road feeder basically is a trucking company that just acts like an airline. They just go point to point. They go to different terminals, right, and then you got to pick up from those terminals just like you would an airline.
Okay.
So somehow, right, that's the middle leg. The forwarder's getting it to us, so we're getting pre-alerted on how it's coming to us, and then we got to go recover it, which we don't charge for typically, right? And then we got to check it in the warehouse, and then we're putting it on route, and most of these orders will have like a must deliver by date that usually works fine with, okay, I'm recovering it today, I can put it out for tomorrow. Now, we also do a lot of final mile for LTL companies, right?
Okay.
We help them with their capacity, their overflow. Sometimes they don't want to deal with residential freight and deal with like tough driveways.
But most times they don't.
Yeah, they don't. So they'll just like build the trailer for us. We take the trailer, right? And then, in that case, we're getting a trailer blind. I mean, we have one client, one carrier, like we're opening up the back of the door and it's like those old school, like printed bills. And, that's supposed to match the freight. Doesn't always, but, and then we got to enter that ground up. So we have no idea what we're getting or where the stuff's going. You know what I mean?
God, yeah.
So you're building routes off that, and a lot of times it's got to go out same day.
Most TMS systems are built by tech companies who think they understand transportation. They've talked to a few owners, read a few reports, and built the technology they think you need. Different comes with 35 years of real-world experience. They've lived every single problem that you face. Routes that don't make money, customers calling about late deliveries, and systems that don't talk to each other. So they built a complete transportation ecosystem based upon what actually works in the real world and not just what looks good in a demo. Everything connected, real-time data, all in one place. Built by operators who simply got tired of TMS systems that just didn't work. Visit deliverdifferent.com/last2first. Different. Built by operators for operators. The capacity, because obviously you got to be able to manage the capacity to know what type of equipment you're going to need to execute it.
Yeah.
But I think the primary this I'm hearing from you, at least on the air freight side, is whereas in our world it's about a point to point, right? pick up from A, go straight to B. Everything's flowing back into these stations, your DCs, your cross docks. And so that's where you kind of massage it to sort, seg it, and make it fit, try to build your volume up and make that route as profitable as you can possibly make it.
Right. Yeah, volume's key. I mean, sometimes I'll go really low on a bid because it's a lot of volume. And, it doesn't require a signature. It's not time specific. I got 2 days to deliver it. Stuff like that, I'll bite really low, right? So that we can just get filler freight.
You fill it in.
You know what I mean? And you basically have your truck that goes to this county, that goes to this county. And then if you have overflow, like, holiday peak that's coming up, you'll bring on support trucks, right? So instead of doing like single routes and counties, then you start to run a 4-quadrant, right? Put an overflow truck here, you know what I'm saying? And then whatever doesn't fit on those route trucks, then you put on the overflow guys. And that's when you get like really, really heavy.
Yeah.
If you get really, really slow, what's great about the IC model is that you can, remove the overcapacity support, right? And quickly scale down or up. During COVID, I mean, we're just, I'd be at my kid's birthday or something and just constantly, calling drivers, and just adding trucks to just deal with all the volume, so.
How is the business today? As we're in an environment now where tariffs, de minimis, is volume up, down, stable, steady?
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, we're really diversified. So, we have one station that's doing really well. Pretty busy, than usual. And then we have one that's really slow, really, really slow. I'd say the state of the industry right now, if you talk to anybody, is, the general consensus is it's slow. And I think the biggest problem is tariffs because there's a lot of uncertainty as to where exactly they're going to land, especially with the bigger trading partners, right? China, that's starting to warm up to be a good conversation and then quickly not.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of
uncertainty.
So that uncertainty is holding a lot of people back from making big decisions. You know what I mean? We did see a huge spike because everyone's trying to cram inventory in, right?
Initially.
Before the tariffs hit, right? So there's just a gang rush. That's why it's funny. You go to Lowe's, before Halloween, you see all the Halloween decorations, and then right behind it, you see all the Christmas stuff, and Christmas trees and stuff, because there's just so much stuff that was bought, excess inventory, right?
I was in Home Depot not too long ago with my kids, and my daughter said, "Is Christmas stuff up already?" It's probably the earliest I've seen Christmas stuff up, but maybe that's your point. Like it's been there.
It's weird
because they got it all in to beat the tariff deadline.
Yeah, so there's a lot of inventory. We're hoping that there'll be like a lot of sales. We're really kind of curious on how this peak season is going to fold out. We think a lot of big box retailers will do like deals and promotions and stuff like that. But we read a report not too long ago where there was a sample of 2,000 consumers, and 40% of them are saying they're not spending any more than over $500 for entire Christmas spend. And they're not doing any purchasing until after your Black Friday, right? Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
So, I think, it's going to take deals and stuff from the retailers to kind of push that stuff out.
Folks.
But, consumers are dealt with like really high interest rates. You know what I mean? Credit card interest rates, mortgage interest rates and stuff like that. So it's just, that's kind of where things are kind of getting, I think, hit, and then on the business commercial side, nobody's making a big decision, nobody's making big investments and stuff like this until I think this all levels out, and solidifies wherever it does,
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot. You mentioned uncertainty, right? And we're going to this peak season where historically people are adding more capacity. You're expecting a big rush, and the folks I'm talking to, even on the kind of side I come to find them outside, are still saying like we're not quite sure. So, what are you do? Are you doing anything organizations to prepare for that, to kind of maybe position yourself to kind of get through this next maybe 3 months or so?
Yeah, and I really think that's, I really think the first quarter, right, or the end of the first quarter or the beginning of the second quarter next year, I think things will start to turn around. That's really where I think it is. We're going into our peak season, so as slow as we may be in certain areas, it's like you don't want to send some trucks home. You don't want to, you don't
Never
have any
know.
kind of cuts and stuff. You want your capacity there and ready, and you want to try to be as careful as possible.
Mhm.
So, it takes a lot of work to bring on good drivers, right,
Yeah.
and good staff, and it takes time to train. So we're extremely proud of our extremely low turnover rate. A lot of our C's have been with us for decades. You know what I mean? Just good solid guys. So you try to do your best, right? But it's interesting. I think we're just in very challenging times right now.
Yeah, yeah. Switch gears a little bit. I know a little about your business because we do some work on the insurance out together. But you are both a broker and a motor carrier, correct?
Yeah, it's two different entities.
Two separate entities,
It's two different
yeah.
businesses, entities, insurance policies. You know what I mean? Tax IDs.
Explain it because I think there's a lot of miseducation. People don't understand maybe the difference between the two. One just operation. I mean, obviously, what both do differently, and then I can jump in here too. But how that may affect from a risk management standpoint to why you may want to be one and not the other.
Well, when the big thing, especially in certain states, is IC misclass. There's people that are taking traditionally what would be a company guy and saying, "Hey, you're an owner operator," to evade workers' comp. Different things, right? There's serious cases of that happening. We're purely, bring on independent contractors that had their own tax ID. They had their own insurance. They had their own business cards, maybe even a website. You know what I mean? They are free to work with other companies. We do not restrict it. Okay. And even though we need them to hit certain deadlines and targets, we don't tell them what time they got to show up and things like that. Right. But I think a lot of trucking companies would have an issue, right, if they're a motor carrier,
Yeah.
right, contractor sees, because then you're a like kind of business, and that's where a lot of companies will have a problem.
Yeah.
If they get audited,
Meaning there's no difference between you saying I'm a motor carrier, I'm carrying freight, but then I have these independent contractors, 1099s, who are also doing the same thing.
It's a like kind business, right?
So
that's where there could be a lot of challenges. So when we figured out how we're going to start this, run this, and continue the book of business, and we see, okay, we all have ICs. These are independent guys. You know what I mean? We're basically a broker. We're basically a broker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to be the most compliant and best business practice, we set up as that.
Yeah. It's interesting in I'll say our world, final mile world, where kind of the smaller vehicles, smaller parcels. Most companies have been set up, organized as motor carriers, right?
Yep.
Even my company, although at the end of our maybe 5 years before we sold, we brought in our broker authority. We had it all in one entity.
Oh, wow.
Wow, right? But and wasn't really educated on how that impacts risk management. Now that I'm in insurance and looking at risk management, underwriters, they don't like that because it's kind of the same deal you're talking about, right? We don't know who you are in any given moment, right?
Cross-pollination, yeah.
Right,
yep.
Cross-pollination, right?
Yep.
Also issues of double brokering, etc.
Yep.
But you're starting to see some trend. I'm hearing some folks in our industry saying, hey, we're going to probably change our designation from being a motor carrier to a broker because of the point you made, right? The reality is if you're working with a predominantly driver fleet of independent contractors,
yeah,
you're probably more of a broker than a motor carrier, right? The challenge I see sometimes is on the customer agreements that they're signing. The customers are saying in the agreement, you're a licensed motor carrier. We're doing business with XYZ company, a licensed motor carrier in this particular state with this DOT number, this MC number. And there's just I may probably more of an ignorance, I guess.
Well, that's a big problem. That's a big issue that's happening right now because when we first started out, it took a little explanation for me to deal with a new customer in their compliance department, explain, well, you're a broker, we only deal with motor carriers. I'm like, you want this because our independents have $1 million, right? Then we have the contingent, right? And if anything happens and there's vicarious liability, we're basically the broker on the record, right? So if there's a lawsuit, they're going after the motor carrier, the truck, the independent, right? But then there's going to be permeation on, well, who's paying this guy negligently? Who hired this guy negligently, right? We're going to go after them, right? A traditional motor carrier setup, it's that forwarder that's in California or Chicago that really has nothing to do with it, right? They're going to get dragged into the lawsuit on the traditional setup, right? So with our setup, it's like, okay, we're basically the broker, right?
Yeah.
Broken your freight for you with our contingent. So the carrier gets hit, then there's permeation, and we're brought in vicarious. You're one layer
Yeah.
out on the onion extra. So
Yeah.
it takes that whole explanation and feathering. Like, oh, okay, we get it. We'll make an exception. We'll contract with you as a broker, not a motor carrier, because we get it. Bigger companies, are just so rigid that they won't budge.
Yeah.
The big problem now is there's all these technology platforms like RMIS or Highway or and you're not getting through unless you have a motor carrier number. And now, a lot of companies are going to these platforms saying we're only using this platform, right, to bring on vendors. Yep. We're not going around it. We're not, so.
Yeah. And there's no one you can talk to. So I've advocated on behalf of some of our clients, not you, I don't know about you on it, but when you talk about this RMIS and some other, these other, vetting agencies of third parties, and they just don't understand.
They don't,
and they're not even attempting to understand. It is very cookie cutter, and it's like you either fit in the box or you don't.
Yeah.
But to your point, there needs to be some more flexibility there, because the reality is, to your point, it's probably a better situation for you and for the whole kind of chain of custody there, because as you mentioned, you're adding another level of protection for the actual shipper, right? And you're using a contingent auto liability policy to give that protection where you're insured on behalf of the motor carrier that you're brokering to.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I just went through this exercise where because we're going to all these buildings in the city of Manhattan, and they just have crazy requirements.
Yes.
Hudson Yards, all this stuff, right? Even if you're just back into a dock and taking a pallet off, they want you to have like 3 million umbrella and all this stuff. And we've been really good about kind of navigating that and saying, hey, we're not doing construction. Yeah. Here's a certificate and everything. We'll have the 70 different entities you want on a cert holder, additionally insured. We'll produce that. We usually get passed, but we added that because, like I said, we have a big piece of business that they want that, and it's a great setup, right? Because it's that additional layer of protection. But just some companies are they're just so rigid. They don't care. They're like, we're only going to go with the motor carrier, and we're only going to onboard vendors, right, through Highway. Yeah. If they're not on Highway and they don't pass all the boxes we make them check, then
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for somebody that can get in there and do something different, because you're right. It's a handful of customers I see. It's one that we experience with your business, the same customer with a few other ones happening right now, same kind of requirements, and these guys are looking for umbrella policies, to the tune of $5 million.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't make any sense. Like you're not carrying any freight with that type of exposure. You're not really in the buildings, so it's and then the worst part is, I'll let you go, is when you actually get the cost for some of this insurance coverage.
Yeah,
you're probably not even making that in your margin from that client. So it's like, you want me to literally work for free.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to raise rates. When we come up with our rates, we're looking at our competitors. We're seeing where the market is, and we're seeing, okay, what is our pain points, right? Adding a second man, that's expensive, right? A lift gate's not expensive, but you do have maintenance, so you do got to get paid for it. You can't give lift gates away for free, right? But you can go a little bit low. So we kind of like look to kind of see where our pain is. Waiting time, right? Or time specific surcharge. That's very heavy on the operation to execute that delivery at that specific time. You lose that truck and the ability to have it do other stuff, right? So we look at where our pain points are, and we come in very deliberately where our rates are, and we don't like to raise them. So most of my tariffs, especially my contract ones with my customers, we haven't changed it in like years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But you try to add a little bit something, or the New York congestion fee that that's now out there, and things like that. And it's like there's a lot of aversion to it. Now it's okay. You got to add all this insurance, right? That costs $17,000-$18,000 additional, and they don't want to pay for it, right? It's like, oh, here's a contract rate. So it's very tight. It's a real balancing act.
Yeah, it's
And I don't know, I don't know if it's specific for our industry. Maybe on the courier side, you're mostly dealing with like direct shippers, right? So maybe they don't have these crazy compliance regimes and
you're starting to see more because I think what's happening is I was going to say it's getting more pervasive in our space too this because of what's happening with consumer demand and freight moving closer to certain markets, right? Some of these final mile companies are now in position to do work with some of these shippers that maybe historically they have not.
right.
And so these shippers who have not really worked with final mile don't really understand it. They're putting these same more trucking type requirements in this category, and it just doesn't fit all the time.
Right.
And the carrier wants to do the business, they want to grow, but then it's cost prohibitive, and so there's a bottleneck there that's happening, and I do think that there's something's got to give at some point because you mentioned volume is kind of uncertain right now. Insurance prices. I'm in the insurance business, and I hate the fact because I've sat in your seat and I know all about the rising costs, but insurance is not going down anytime soon. There's a couple of things you can try to tweak here or there.
Yeah. And that's why I like working with you now as our insurance broker, because like you actually come from the world. You know what it's what it's like and what the challenges are.
Yeah.
So
And my thought is, look, it is because I know I'm trying to creatively problem solve real situations, and sometimes you can do that. Insurance, I've learned it's more of an art than a science. Right? There's some things you can do.
yeah.
But I'm also trying to advocate to the underwriters and say, look, man, you don't understand what's really happening here. Like,
Yes.
you're actually keeping to cover a risk that you never run into.
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of the footwork, can really come to play and maybe make some good changes.
Yeah.
Captives, right? Captives are cool. You can save some money. There's a major client out there, and they just say straight out, we don't do captives. So you can do all this and save a lot of money and being a captive, and and then you're not getting this contract because they're just like, nope, we're not doing it.
It's ridiculous. And which is a surprise. I know that because all the captives are on same paper, same underwriter,
Right.
same et cetera. But it's almost like they want you to be at the mercy of the insurance industry and forcing you to face insolvency in some cases, which is crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let's move off because we can soapbox all day long about insurance.
Yeah.
I want to talk a couple of things before we kind of wrap up. KPIs, metrics, numbers, right? We've talked a couple of times before about how important it is to understand your numbers in your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the things that you and your team are looking at to define success for Fifth Dimension?
Yeah, that's crazy. Like we'll go to these trade shows. We always like to talk to other carriers and pick their brains on what they do and different challenges and things like that. I'm shocked at like how much people don't really watch their numbers, right, or look at the right KPIs. I think it's crucial. So what we're actually doing is every single week we're coming out with a pro forma P&L. It's actually a colorful dashboard that I put together on Excel. So we're doing to the dime of what we build out. We're doing to the dime of what our payroll is. We're doing to the dime of what our IC costs are and our fixed costs like rent, exactly how many trucks we have out, on rental, or forklifts we have out on rental, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then what you can't accurately put in is all your miscellaneous, your propane, your dumpster costs, boxes of paper clips, you know what I mean? Like you don't know what that is, right? So that component, we look at the prior quarter once the books are closed out, and then we come up with an average, right? And we benchmark that average. So that's in as a component. And then every single week, we're coming out this dashboard that shows literally, did we make money or did we lose money? What exactly was our IC percentage? What was our payroll percentage? What is my warehouse cost, even though it's fixed, right? That shouldn't be more than like 8-9%. Based on your sales, what did that come out to? You know what I mean? So these are all real-time metrics. House guys, right? How much are they earning per hour? The revenue per hour is an important metric on a company side, So it's really important, and we put that dashboard together every single week, and some of the managers, we compensate them. So in real time, right, they're getting a percentage of the net profit that we're seeing there.
So you're aligning their compensation to the performance.
Correct. Yeah. So it's not just okay, bring in a bunch of sales for your station. You know, here's your commission. You also got to watch your costs. You know, you can't just throw money at guys to get the stuff done, and you know what I mean. It's a real balancing act, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it allows the managers to participate in that, and they're the most important, right? I can look at something and be like, this doesn't make sense. We have too much overtime, you know. But these are the guys on the ground that know why we needed it, right? And so that's going back to like the regional guy. I don't want a regional guy that's just gonna, you know, butt heads with it. I want to know directly, right, and have that relationship with my managers and have them be incentivized, right, to really balance the numbers.
Yeah.
There's times that we'll even see, you know, sales, especially when we're really busy. I'm like, your payroll percentage is actually low.
Yeah.
You know, we're running like, you know, you're running like 16%. And then I start looking at like who's getting paid what. When was the last time I got a raise? Which is kind of interesting, right? Coming from the C-suite. I'm like, let's go over your staff and you know, who does what, how they're doing for you, how much of a team player they are. You know, they haven't got a raise in a while.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those metrics, you know, because we're selling a service, right? You know, we're not baking cakes or making pizzas or building houses. It's service, right?
Yep.
So our product is our people. You know what I mean? So, but it's cool. With that dashboard, we're able to actually incentivize the managers and say, hey, look, you're getting a piece of the action.
Yeah.
If we got to do a capital call, cash call, because we're not going to make payroll or something, you don't have to worry about it. You're not a liability partner. But trucks, it's an accident, it's a loss, like you're not getting dragged into it, right? But you are getting profit sharing, right? In real time, you know?
Yep. No, I absolutely love that. I love talking about numbers, love talking about dashboards, analytics, because a couple of reasons. One, it's probably maybe halfway through my stint at QCS, we did a similar thing. I created a weekly dashboard, a scorecard, right? I'm a sports guy, football player. What I love about sports is at the end of the game, there's a score put up there. Right. You know, very, very quickly. Did you win the game or did you lose the game? There's no gray area about that. And when we started to, and this was a result of this book called Traction by this guy named Gino Wickman that I live by, and it wasn't just me, we brought the management team in. And so we looked at these numbers every single week, and we looked at, it was maybe 15 different KPIs we tracked, from how many drivers in the pipeline to margin performance, right? Yep. And everyone around that table got to see that. And so there was no more guesswork, no more knowing, you know, if we didn't win last week or we won last week. Like, everyone knew. And then you can drive that accountability downstream. Yeah. The first time I ever saw this done, when I was at my first job, I was in the parking management industry, actually here in Philadelphia, not far away. And the general manager of the market at the time, who's now the president of the company, had all the managers come in, and he said, we're going to assign everyone P&L responsibility for your location, for your garage you're managing. Right. And some of these guys are blue collar guys. They had not really been involved in numbers. And so he was trying to educate them. It took a little while, and I asked him one day, I said, why are you doing this? And he said the same thing you said, because I want them to own, I want them to own the P&L. And there's an incentive tied to that. Yeah. And you quickly start seeing how the management performance changes when they got some cash on the line. It actually works.
We're transparent. You know, our system, you have the ability to like blind, like, you know, how much you're charging the customer total, or how much the driver's getting paid. We're transparent, you know, whether you're a clerk or a senior dispatcher or a supervisor, you know, I want you to know the numbers. I want you to know, you know, where we're at. Now what we're actually doing, so we're putting that manual dashboard together, right, manually every single week. When we close the numbers. Now what we're doing is we're on a TMS system that's really great. It can give you a report on anything, but you got to put, you know, SQL code, the dates, you're getting raw data in Excel, you know what I mean? And, you know, for my managers, you know, they don't have the time to do that, right? They're worried about dispatch and all this stuff. So we actually found a company that will use an RPA bot, right? That's going to go in, pull the data, right? Put it all together and show us exactly what we want to see. And then I call it the lunch noontime report, right? So it's just an automated email that we get. You click on the link, and it gives you a nice, colorful dashboard, right? And you can just slide the dates. I want to see just for today, or I want to see how I'm trending for the week or for the month. And you're seeing real time, okay, by terminal, you know, how many stops we have, right? How much we're billing, right? What customers are we billing it? How much in that moment are the drivers getting, what commission are they getting?
Mm-hmm.
Then we're even looking at customer credit limits, right? What percentage of the credit limits being used by the customer?
Yeah.
Are they about to go over? Why? Because they just explode in sales, or because they're aging, they're slow paying? Then I could also see this customer has a user credit limit. Let's go cold call them and reach out and see see what's up. So we're getting this every single day,
Yeah.
and then our aging, most important thing is cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing real time. Oh, something just tripped over, 45 days. Why? What's going on with that? You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
And we just have that done with the bot that just goes, literally logs in. We made the bot a username and login. Literally goes in, pulls the Excel, extracts all the data, and then puts on a Microsoft dashboard,
I can geek out with you on that. I've got one a little better than that. I don't say better, but broader, I should say. And by the time this episode airs, it'll probably be out now. But we're working on building something that, imagine doing what you just described and being able to benchmark yourself across the industry.
Wow.
So not only can you see kind of where you are, right, what you need to know for your own, for your internal operations and your business, but where do you rank at across the industry? And we're going to call it the scouting report. And it's going to be within this community we're building called the Last2First Huddle. So if you're out there now, I'm not sure when this episode is going to drop out, but I'm hoping it's out by the time this comes out, because I think the industry needs to start to be able to understand where we are as an industry in order to increase our value.
Absolutely.
And so we're working on that. We're working on some pretty cool things in the works right now.
Awesome,
and you'll be invited to the early party. So by the time it comes out, you'll already be in there playing with it. So
I'll be first in line.
Yeah. We're gonna wrap up here, but I'll ask all my guests a final question, which is kind of, what's your last to first moment? It's that pivotal time, could be personal, could be professional, where you made a decision and it essentially landed you kind of in the seat you're today, right? You've been experienced, you've had some ups, some downs, some challenges, but you found very innovative ways to overcome them, and obviously paying attention to the numbers every single day to know where you're going to go in the future, right?
Right.
But when you think about your last to first moment, what would that be for you? Whether it be something that you've experienced in your career, professionally, or maybe personal life.
Well, I just, I was literally born in this business. My father would bring me in at like 4:00 in the morning when I was a little baby. I'd sleep in the back of the car. And then growing up, through high school, I was on the forklift, so it's just in our blood. It's something that my father created and stuck with and built, huge company. And I wanted to take that, over. And, a lot of people are like, I want to keep my kids out of this and, get them out, This is something like where I actually want the family to be in it, and I'd like to see my kids involved, and it's a legacy that I could turn over to them that they can carry on. So, I think I've seen that from the very beginning. So, it's hard for me to kind of pinpoint like a single, point and moment. To be honest with you, it's been a life journey.
Yeah, it's in your blood.
Yeah,
it's in
exactly.
your blood. Yeah. When you think about the future of your business in this industry, would you say the arrow's pointing up, pointing down? What do you think about where we're going?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, obviously. I think AI is a big thing in a lot of industries, automation. Right now, there's already carriers that are doing pilot programs where tractor trailers are literally leaving one distribution facility, going on a highway, going over the road, backing up to another distribution facility. So there's going to be some challenges there, but we're so niche in our particular segment in customized logistics that I don't see us really hitting too many challenges where I think a lot of other industries would. And I would say it's pointing up. I mean, during the global recession, I was involved with the company at one terminal as a terminal manager, and I'm like, wow, entire countries are going bankrupt. Everybody's getting affected by this, and I didn't have to lay off a single employee, because people need logistics.
Yeah.
Companies were forced to shut down during COVID, and, we gave all the trucks like size of declarations, like we're critical infrastructure supply. We're moving medical supplies and stuff, even though it might be treadmills as well, you know what I mean? But we didn't stop day one during COVID. So everybody needs logistics. It's always gonna be there. I don't think it's gonna be a dying industry. I think there'll be challenges to it. But I would say overall it's going to incrementally, go up, and there'll be different opportunities and things like that. That's my take on it.
Yeah. Well, Chris, man, thanks for being on the podcast. Congrats again on your success and what you've accomplished. I know you got plenty more to do, so it's not like it's not the end of the road at all for you. But I appreciate you sharing your insights. A lot of the innovations that you've done, whether it be on the kind of employee, I'm gonna call it the franchise model, for lack of a better term, and understanding how to kind of pivot at times when you need to, understanding the importance of numbers. Because it all ties back to people. You mentioned, like, that's what we do. We provide a service, and that service is our biggest assets are our folks. And so I really appreciate you being on the podcast, man, and look forward to seeing the future, how you continue to grow from 5th dimension to 6th dimension to 7th dimension to 8th dimension to 9th dimension. So thank you, man, for being on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for
Last2First family. That was Chris Bartley, 5th Dimension Logistics here in New Jersey. If you're looking for a partner in the New Jersey area or beyond, right? He's all over the place. Reach out to him. So we're going to be out on this episode, but thanks for watching. Peace.